Hi,
Hello.
we're live.
We did
Hi,
it.
Alana. Hi over there in Rochester, New York.
Oh, yes, I was just saying how great it is over here in Rochester. Wish you were here, but I'm excited to design live with you today. Let's do a quick intro. I am Alana. I am tuning in from Rochester, New York, where we haven't had a dry weekend since November.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy.
No, it is really sad, but we're both hand lettering artists and we're excited to talk about art licensing today, but the my other half, Katie, is gonna drive the steer the ship today. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, no pressure. Alana usually steers the ship and I get to spectate. So now I'm sweating a little bit. It's good for me. It's good for my heart. Okay. Yeah, I'm Katie. I'm over here in Austin, Texas, and yeah, I'm gonna walk you through some of my process today for sketching and planning out art licensing pieces. We're gonna specifically be looking at greeting cards, but we might throw some other stuff in there. I've
Yeah.
got a little something up my sleeves. Well, I forgot to wear my sleeves. They're up high. They're up here. It's up here.
Well, we got some people saying hi in the chat, and we'll do a quick little
Hey,
recap of what licensing is. Monica, seeing you again, love it. Thanks so much for joining.
love you, Monica.
Cody, hi, thanks for joining. We're really excited to talk about licensing. It is our favorite passive income stream. Truly is passive.
Passive.
Yes, let's talk about what passive means. But I just want to say hi to everyone in Behance as well. Robert, Bree, Oliver, so excited. Maybe you guys can chime in to some of the design process. Maybe we can use some crowd participation to decide what you're going
Hmm.
to design. We'll see.
Just don't ask me to draw a horse.
Too much pressure. I need repetition.
I
Um,
know.
it's like the minute you become like a quote unquote professional artist, you're like, I can't do it on the spot. Some people
Yeah,
are
no.
so good at it. We've seen like the type fights, which are so cool. Um, just like live lettering. It's amazing. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about licensing. So art licensing basically means we've been referring to it like Blockbuster, but it basically is renting your artwork out to people who mostly like manufacturing partners who make physical products. So basically walk into a Marshall's and all the like tchotchkes and all the water bottles and all the dog stuff for dog parents, all that
The
stuff.
dog stuff.
The dog stuff is for it has art in it on it. So it means that somebody probably licensed that art. And that person could be you. So we're going to share
Woo!
how you can like get started with it, what to put in your portfolio. And we say passive because the thing with licensing, if you haven't caught the other couple episodes, is that the more you have, the more licenses you have out there, the more income you generate from it. And you're never working on a piece like in a freelance sense where you're working on it for the client right then and there. It's like a long game where it builds up over time. And so it really can build this passive income stream if you have several people licensing, even if they're licensing the same design, which is cool, which actually is something we haven't really talked about yet, is when you have multiple clients licensing the same thing. But yeah, it's pretty great. We love it very, very much. And we've been doing it for so many years. It's actually how Katie and I found each other and are now business partners at Good Type. So today's session is going to be all about sketching. And I think there's a lot of little important nuggets that you'll need to take
Hmm.
away for how to build a really strong portfolio that buyers love. Oh,
Yeah, so I hope you're hungry for all those nuggets
I also see people in the snacks in the chat. Why did I say snacks? Oh, because it's
because it's
night.
lunchtime.
Yeah. Draw a unicorn or a zebra unicorn. So
Oh, you know
yeah.
what? One of my favorite exercises, though, was at the Letter West retreat where Mary Kate McDevitt, one of my favorite lettering artists and illustrators, she was there teaching a class and she had us all draw different animals and we weren't allowed to use reference because she wanted us to embrace the wonkiness. And it was one of my favorite exercises because I tend to struggle with perfectionism and I'm one of those people that like I can have like a vague vague picture of something in my head, but it's not crystal clear. Like I can't even see the faces of the people that I look at all the time,
Right.
or like I can't picture what like my dog looks like realistically. I can kind of see some blobby shapes. So
Well,
when
I
I'm
think
asked to not use a reference, it turns out kind of funky, but that's kind of fun.
you just made it sound like a little extreme, but like I just want to clarify, like I think we see the same way. Like we don't have what is it, photographic memories.
Photographic memory, yeah.
We have like, yes, you can imagine your dog, but you can't imagine the like
Well,
minutia.
there's a whole spectrum of how much people can picture things. And there's those people that can't even picture, they're like, what does an apple look like in your brain? And they're like, I literally see nothing. There's
What?
nothing there. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's crazy.
I shared this actually over on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, but my um daughter asked, she's 4, and she asked us to draw a unicorn. And I looked at my husband and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, I need to like sit down with exact references and like a pencil. And my husband was like, yeah, I'll draw you a unicorn. And he's an engineer, so like he's creative, but in a very different way. And it was the cutest unicorn ever. It had like the shortest
Yeah.
legs. And I think it's because the like fear of doing it well,
Yeah.
it's just gone because it never developed because there was never like this pressure. So anyway, we're gonna let go of some of the pressure today. We're gonna have fun and talk about licensing while we sketch. But I also want to just make a quick note that we're gonna be using Fresco today. So we've done a couple of this series. We've done a little bit in Illustrator. So we also use Photoshop a lot. I use InDesign, but not for licensing, more for like my licensing catalog or like anything I'm sending out to a big group of art directors that maybe my past agent would have asked me for. Um, and today we're going to be using Fresco specifically for sketching. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. So I guess if unless there's something else you want to add, I think we could talk about, oh, you've got
Yeah,
stuff.
let's just live in is what I was gonna say. Dive in live. Yeah, I just wanted to show you all some of our licensing portfolio because we've been talking a lot about this, but you're probably like, what the heck does it look like? So let's peruse in here. And so basically, something interesting to note about how the licensing world typically works is it's organized by categories, by industries that you're focusing in. For greeting cards is what we do most of. Alana has licensed a lot more things outside of greeting cards, but I think like 90% of what I've licensed at least is greeting cards. So that's my world. And in that world, you think about when do you send a greeting card? Well, it's all around events and occasions for where you'd want to reach out to somebody and say something about it. So that's how we organize our portfolio. As you can see, you can just click through, and thanks to our lovely web designer, um, oh, there's my dog chiming in.
I take over.
Alana, do you want to explain it while I mute for a second?
Okay, also I'm loving the conversation in the chat because people's brains are so fascinating. Like I really didn't realize that it was such a spectrum with what we can see. And now I'm questioning all my life choices, but that's fine. So as Katie said, we have these portfolios and they're organized by category. And so like birthday is literally always in season. Like especially if you have kids, it's like literally always someone's birthday because you're just getting invites left and right for the whole entire class, and it's a lot. And so, we've got holiday here, which is a huge one. We've got Christmas, we've got Hanukkah, it's its own holiday. Um, we've got sympathy, encouragement. Every day is a really big one because think about all the times you want to send someone a card, but there's like no specific holiday. It's just like you're thinking of them or they're going through something. I mean, snail mail is superior. And like Katie said, we do a lot of greeting cards. And if you are more analog or if you are more into illustration that like maybe you don't do a lot of lettering, or if you do patterns, Katie knew exactly what I was going to say. There's a place for this as well, and it can be seasonal specific. And so, of course, that would come down to like color choices for Christmas, and spring would be a certain type of flower. This paper airplane pattern. Thank you, Alana, for filling in I couldn't figure out what the word was. That paper plane is for Father's Day because I was working on a project for Father's Day and I was trying to think of the things that aren't cliche, like barbecue, mustaches, beers, golf. And I was like, those are none of those things are what I would give my father. So I thought of something like what's playful and not necessarily gendered, but I can use these colors that read a little more like earthy. And so I really thought one of the fun things with licensing is thinking about people you actually know and designing for them instead of designing um, just for the mass market, because we never want you to just like shut down everything you know as a human with human relationships. We want you to think about like specifics too and how that might relate to other people. So Valentine's Day, another really big one. Um, but again, you can do this. You can organize your illustrations or your patterns in holidays as well, or maybe just more seasonally. And there's a lot of overlap there as well, especially with color changes. So I think, yeah, inspirational quotes is a humongous. This is like the bread and butter of what I've worked on. This can go for planners or stationery, which wouldn't just be greeting cards. Actually, stationery is a separate category, which would be notebooks, notepads, pencil cases, like anything back to school related, binders, things like that. And so we've definitely done a lot of these as well. So there's some of the categories for you. And I think focusing on the categories that you are excited by is really important. But having a well-rounded portfolio would probably have a little bit of everything with a emphasis on birthday if you can.
Hmm. And one of the difficult things about art licensing and the cool things is that nobody's telling you what you need to create. You have to sit down at your iPad or your sketchbook or your computer and decide what you're going to make and try and make something that is going to be attractive to clients because you don't have someone coming to you and telling you the project up front. So you kind of have to create your own creative briefs in this industry. So that can be difficult. I mean, we've all had that staring at a blank canvas moment where we're like, have we ever drawn anything before? Like, what should I make? What did people want? So we answered that problem with our something called a portfolio builder. And Alana, do you want to drop the link to our 5 free prompts?
Already got it, girly.
Awesome.
And
So
we have some
I,
questions too. So when you're done with
oh,
that, we'll talk through that.
okay, I just wanted to introduce y'all to kind of how we go about deciding what to make really quick. And I just pulled a couple of our prompts from our portfolio builder that I thought we could work on together today. So you can see we've got like headline ideas, a general prompt up here, some inspirational graphic ideas, the types of shapes or things that we might incorporate in illustrations, and then a mood board and a color palette. So our portfolio builder has over 100 now of these. I believe it's like 120 or something like this.
Yeah.
So this is really, really a great place to start and get your wheels turning. And they're all based on those same categories and occasions that we just talked about. And so maybe let's take a couple of those questions and then we'll get into how to start sketching.
Yeah, okay. So the first question was from Cody. Would you typically put mock-ups in your portfolio for patterns? So this is a really great question. And what you can, you don't need mock-ups. So the thing with licensing is that people who are purchasing or licensing your work are coming with a product in mind, and they're like sifting through like hundreds of pieces looking for something kind of specific. Like they're not just like browsing. They're looking for a specific season, a specific product. They know what they're looking for, and they hopefully have the skills to look at your work and say, okay, this will translate really well to our project. So what we've
Mhm.
done is on our like main studio page, which separates into both licensing and freelance work, we've included a couple mock-ups of projects that we like, but it's not the like focus. And then on the page where you can scroll, all of our portfolio, which you can see it's just like a button, then there's no mock-ups on this because we know that they're really quickly sifting through looking specifically for that piece, and we want to make it as quick as possible so they're not like endlessly scrolling. We're just like we know who the buyer is, and so we're really making our site work for them. And we don't want to like confuse them. We want to make sure it's crystal clear. And so you could include a few mock-ups at the top of your site or on like your homepage or something, but we found this works really well for us. It's like very minimal mock-ups. Yeah, here's like a banner, and then it takes you to our portfolio. And so you kind of know what you're looking at, and then you can like dive deep once you get to the portfolio. So
Hmm.
anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that was great.
Okay, then we've got another question over on YouTube. Do you both have individual portfolios plus the combined good type portfolio? And this is such a good question because Katie and I actually just launched that studio site earlier this year. And we both did what Katie is showing on the screen right now, which is point our personal websites over to good type. And this was like 5 years in the making. So we both have our own websites. And before we started working together at Good Type, we had our own businesses. And now we've said, hey, let's make work together. And so that's what we're doing. And so we just made that switch. But yeah, we have it. And then it just points. So mine was just a drop down. Yep. And right in the like banner announcement bar, it says, check out what I'm doing. So I also just directed it right there. And so as long as we're getting people to see our work, like it doesn't really matter. You could even like have your work on Behance. Um, yeah, there's lots of ways to do it. Our sites are built on Squarespace, which has been really, really nice for us because there's so many images. And so on Behance, you could do like one page that has like licensing portfolio, and maybe you show some mock-ups there and a couple examples, and then maybe direct them to the full like 100-piece portfolio if that's what you've got. You don't have to have 100 pieces though. Don't. I'm just giving an example.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. I think we've got those two questions answered. If you have any more questions, we're here for them. But let's go back to that builder or um,
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we could try today, and maybe we'll get to a couple of them and just like roughly start sketching out. This intro phase isn't about perfection, but we have learned to make it fairly quick just because art licensing, the way that you get paid for it is you get the same amount whether you spent 5 hours or 25 hours on a piece generally. It's not going to make a greeting card more likely for me to sell it for more if I spent like 5 days on it versus if I spent one, unfortunately. So you have to be a little bit strategic about how you spend your time and just kind of work on getting your workflow down. I used to make like 1,000 thumbnails when I was in design school, and I just don't do that anymore because I don't have the time to really explore to that length. And also, I don't need to as much anymore now that I've kind of got some of my general like design sensibilities down and things like that. So one of the things that I get hired to do a lot, or the pieces that sell out of my portfolio, are these pieces that feature like icing on cake or just desserts in general. So Alana and I have been, let's see if I go back and
I want to
show.
make a note about something too. Um, Katie and I have very different sketching styles. As we were talking about earlier, mine look like I drew them with my eyes closed and my non-dominant hand, and it still gets the job done. And sometimes I'll give
And
those,
I've loosened up for sure.
but
I
you're naturally like a little bit tighter
It
anyway.
depends if I'm showing it to a client or keeping it for myself. That does change how I do it. But yeah, good to note.
Yeah.
And so I just want to show a couple of these like cake and icing pieces because we can just start with kind of how to plot this sort of thing out in a sketch. So this kind of thing is done really well for me. Here's another one right here. This one was licensed in Trader Joe's. Here's another one. So you can tell there's like definitely a trend going on. This cake was licensed as well. So hop over to Fresco, and one of the phrases that we had um, on our list to do was hope you get the corner piece.
Yeah.
So we can either do that one, or there's also loving you as a piece of cake. That's cute.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah. Should we?
why don't we have a vote
Yeah. Okay. So
and
loving
see
you is a
which
piece
one
of
we should
cake,
do?
or I hope you get the corner piece. Which one should we letter? And while we're waiting for those poll results to come in, I want to talk really quickly about one of the pieces that was also in Katie's portfolio. Um, it was what was it? You old but you a snack or something?
Yeah. Do you want me to go back to it?
To go back to it, but I just want to talk about it. Another thing that Katie is also like, it definitely recognized for is her use of copy. And so we'll talk a little bit about this, but I know that coming up with your own copy, like we just told you, you have to come up with your own creative brief. You have to figure out the colors. You're like kind of on your own as you're the client for the time being until your client actually comes in and purchases it. But I'm curious if people would also be interested in learning about copy and kind of the process for that. So we'll circle back to that, but just keep that in your mind if that's something you'd be interested in learning about. Okay, let's see.
Okay. Yeah, let's just dive into how I start my sketching process. So I'm just gonna click custom size under start a new document. I do have mine saved. You can see my size is already on there because this is how I create cards all the time. But what I'm gonna do is switch from pixels to inches first and foremost, and then I'm just going to change to the most standard greeting card size. Now, not every single greeting card that I've licensed has been this size. There's like an occasional one that's slightly different. Maybe it's like somebody in the UK where they have a little bit different standard for sizing or something like that. But almost always, I'd say 98% is going to be this ratio of 5:7. So you can feel very comfortable starting there.
I was reading the comments, but I don't think you said this. The reason we do everything vertical instead of horizontal.
No, I haven't said that yet.
Right. Well, the reason we do things horizontal instead of, I mean, vertical instead of horizontal is that if you go to a store like Target, you'll notice that for the most use of space, the best use of space, most cards are stacked horizontally. Oh my God, why do I keep saying them backwards? Vertically. And so you actually like really only see the top half of the design, maybe the top
Yep.
third. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're designing. Also, squares are really fun, but squares cost additional postage. And so
Yep.
that's why you don't see a lot of square greeting cards, except for specialty cards that are like now $8, but then they're like $4 in postage. Not really. They're like one extra stamp. But just something to keep in mind because that's why we're intentionally choosing to make the most common size and aspect ratio.
And then I'm going to go ahead and change the pixels to 300 ppi because I want this to be prepared for print. And I might even go in here and double it just to make sure that my resolution is going to be super crispy. And if, for example, this gets put on a gift bag or something like that instead of a greeting card, then I'm not going to have to recreate it if I'm going to work in pixels in this, although you can work in vector in Fresco, which is really cool. Um, so
That
yeah, so
happened to me recently.
often I will double the pixel size, but I like to keep the ratio 5:7, so I just know. I mean, you could do 10:14 and 300 ppi, and that's the same thing, but it just helps my brain to keep it simple.
Yeah, I actually had one of my greeting cards sold as a greeting card and then sold as a gift bag. And the gift bag was like the biggest gift bag I've ever seen. It must have been like 2 feet
Oh my
tall. It was
gosh,
so big. It was like an oversized gift bag.
that's crazy.
And I was really thankful that I had done this as well because that was an easy double of my income for that one design was to have it sold on two different products.
Something that I learned the other day is that you can just scribble with your Apple Pencil and it goes away. Isn't that cool? And then I can just write um, card.
Oh, that's hand lettering
Oh,
finest.
yeah. Well, I'm like awkwardly trying to, yeah. I always get weird. Even when it's not, the camera's not on like above me, I still feel like someone's looking over my shoulder and I
You
have
just
to like,
gotta, you
okay,
just
so I'm
gotta
gonna
let
go
it
ahead and
set
just
down.
click create the document.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a question
Um,
about bleed.
about what? Oh,
About
bleed.
bleed. Yeah. Do you ever add bleed or mark it?
Yeah. So it depends if I'm planning on doing a design that bleeds off the edges, but I rarely do that with greeting cards because I want to keep it flexible if the size like were to change for some reason, or if they wanted it on a gift bag that's not 5 by 7, then I don't have anything at the edges that I have to try and like change or preserve. But if you do, if that is an integral part of your design, you can absolutely add in bleed the same way that you normally would.
Yeah, that's such a good question too, because we talk about this a lot, is like you want to be able to take the design and you don't, sure, you're intending it to be for a gift card, but a lot of these clients have these really crazy ideas for products that you've maybe never heard of. Like maybe they're doing tea towels that are for your birthday, which like to me does not seem very sellable, but maybe it is. And so it's just the wrong like sizing. And so they'll need it to be like super, super long. And so they'll need to work with what you've got. And so keeping your design really flexible is important as well.
Hey, so I've started my sketching. So far so good.
Per-
Uh, no, can you check in with the chat and see
Yeah.
which one they preferred?
So it was okay, we just have a winner now. It was a 50-50 for a very long time. I hope you get the corner piece.
Okay, great. So for this kind of thing, I usually like to make the icing lettering the star. So that means I want it to take up like a good, probably this whole thing. And maybe I'll have some like cake details around here, something like that. That's just
Chicago.
Picasso. Yeah, this is a safe space, right? Okay.
Yeah. Also, I am curious, like, are most people, because icing is the star. Like for me, I would much rather eat the icing and not the cake. I'm just curious, like, I don't need to be an official poll, but like, let me know in the chat, are you eating the icing or only with like, are you team icing? Let us know.
So the first thing that I do is I normally like just write out the phrase so I can kind of see what's popping out. And I learned this little tip from Louise Feely, um, where she just writes it a bunch of times and then she like lets the bigger words pop out as she writes it. So the things that should be more emphasized, I hope you get is probably smaller. And then maybe the is stacked and then corner piece. Okay, so that's like one
So
kind
you're
of
looking at like
stack that we could
hierarchy.
do. Yeah, yeah, I'm just looking at hierarchy, so we want probably these three words to get the most attention. And it doesn't mean that I'm gonna put these in all caps. It just is kind of me figuring out where am I going to place my emphasis.
I do
And
the
I'm
same
always
thing, but I do underlines.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's totally fine. Whatever works for you. And then as far as what brush I'm using, I always tend to go into the brushes, go into sketching, and then just use the plain pencil. I find that just that it doesn't complicate things for me, and it keeps me from like getting too in my head about details too early, which is something that I can really tend to do. And I want to keep myself from doing that. Okay, so now that I know the hierarchy, I would say, let's see, how are we with time? Okay. I think I like the way that icing looks in script the most, and those tend to sell really well. So we'll probably go with a script. So I can kind of like plot out, okay, that's my eye, and then let's just kind of get the feeling of like what these are gonna look like. And then the eye doesn't have to be stacked. Um, it's very, very chill process. I'm trying not to judge myself too much right now.
I'm not judging. I think it's
And
great.
you can tell I'm a lettering artist when I do these,
Right, that's not the goal for this stage. This is like really about blocking off where things are going to go, and then you get to go back in and redo it. So this is more composition.
Yeah, so I'm starting to get the feel of the letters that I'm working with. So I'm going to I made a new layer. I'm going to turn off that layer and start to make things like a little bit bigger and just kind of play with where they hit. So something that also can make these a little bit more interesting if maybe they're on like an angle of a baseline instead of like a straight baseline. So if I do something like I want my hope to be big, here, I'm going to turn on a little bit of smoothing because I'm just used to having that on. Um, okay, so maybe my H has like a big swirly icing swoosh, swooshy swash. Um, Okay, and then right now I'm just doing like a skeleton of the lettering and I'm not dealing with any of the weight of it. So this might get like way thicker as I go along. And I say might, but it definitely will get thicker because icing is uh, generally piped out fairly thick when it's the lettering. So we
Do
have,
several lockups. How many lockups or like compositions do you test out, or is it sort of just like until it feels right?
oops, how do I get out of that? Cancel. Um, I just kind of go until it feels right. And if you watch some of my replays of things that I've created before, you can see I'm like trying, totally change the idea, and then finally I'm like, okay, I can see something potential here, and then I lock in and I start to really refine. So I kind of feel like I could fit in here. Maybe this needs to be like a little shorter. If I want to grab my eraser. I can come in and do that. So I'm kind of seeing, and then maybe I decide like that my eye needs to like, oh, did I go out of it? Did I just click out?
No.
That's
Oh,
what
I guess so.
I didn't think I did.
That was weird.
Yeah, I thought
Just
I was
wanted to
just
remind
clicking
us to save
here.
your work, I guess.
Okay, I want to close this lasso, and I want to transform it. And I want to move it over here, and then I'm going to click done. And then, so yeah, sometimes I just will like oops, cancel this lasso. Deselect that lasso. Okay. So sometimes I just want to like move things around and try some different layouts like that just with the lasso tool. So I'm going to deselect that. Yeah, this eye just needs like a little place to live. So we'll just let him like float for the moment and work on
I
the
find
bigger things.
I find that I is the trickiest letter because like
It is.
it's kind of a J and also it's the
Oops.
first letter of my name. It kind of my, sometimes it looks like an L. Like, do you have like multiple I's or I mean, I always reference like um
With
vintage.
script, I tend to go back to the same guy, or I'll do like a just that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
But yeah, I've definitely had feedback before, like, oh, the eye looks too much like an S or something like that. So the eyes are hard, and you
yeah.
might not even like, I don't know, you can keep it kind of, I think you kind of need something to ground it. Um, but yeah, this is my go-to eye in script. So yeah, I hope you get, and then we kind of live in here, and then I'll do, and I want to kind of continue to follow the same angle. I can do it really rough right now. Corner, and then maybe it kind of snuggles in there a little bit.
That.
Okay, and then maybe it's like trailing down, or it has like that kind of a swash. Maybe I guess it would be Yeah, I guess I could come from the P like that. So I'm kind of just playing with those. This eye is just not working there. Um,
Yeah, I think I liked the other eye on top, but I guess nothing else would match it.
yeah, that's the problem. I think it'll end up looking fine
I
if
want
I
to go
just,
back
oops, dang
to the
it.
question about bleed for a second. Something that's really great, as you can see here, like Katie, can you put it like half off the artboard for a second, just for like, yeah. So you can see that just because it's like off the artboard, it's not getting cropped. It's warning you, okay, it's gonna crop, but before you had it like kind of off. Um, and so this is something you really want to keep in mind, and this is why, like now it's gone.
Bye.
Yeah, so you want to keep this in mind. Like obviously if you're on the computer doing this, it's not the same. But yeah, so what happens if you, yeah, so it goes away. So keep that in mind because that would be like destructive working, but it works fine because we're just sketching. Like this is not the final right now, so it's fine. She can just like use it as like an erase almost. But if you think you want to use it somewhere else, or if you were doing like a flower and you cropped the side, like that would be gone forever. And so keep just something to keep in mind when you're working. And that's one of the reasons why keeping these off the edge is good too. We do have some more questions. I'm gonna
We
read
could
through
even
them.
get rid of the I and just say, hope you get the corner
Love
piece.
that. We are copywriters on the fly, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what's the question?
I'm just reading them to see. Okay, so I've been adapting I'm having trouble adapting to Fresco, always looking for more resources. Um, yeah, but basically every new program you try is going to have a learning curve. Um, and so we can I don't think we'll have time to go into like Fresco today, but there's some really great tools, and the fact that you can use it as a vector program is really great. But I think we'll just focus on the sketching. But if anyone has courses or sessions that they can recommend for learning Fresco, feel free to drop those for Monica in the comments.
Okay, so now I kind of have this like underlying like a little bit of shape of it. So I'm just gonna go in here and I made my smoothing even more because I just like it bootery smooth. And then
Boo.
I'm gonna up the size a little bit, so it can start feeling like a little bit of a heavier weight that feels more realistic for the icing shape. And then what I do after I have the basic kind of outline of the icing, I'll go in with like a vector pin, like something like where was it? The was it an ink? Hmm, maybe it's just a bit, yeah, the hard round. So
That's
I might take
so-
this one and then and you could just even like skip this phase with the pencil if you want to go straight in if you're feeling like really confident. Oh, that's way too thick. Okay, so something like that. And I just turn the smoothing on. And then maybe I'm gonna add something like that. And then once I do that and I'm happy with like the outside shapes of it, I'll come in and clean it up even more with like a smaller version, excuse me, a smaller version of this brush and kind of like make the edges look a little more like they actually finished with icing and they're not all perfectly just like exactly round shapes. Because like when the piping bag stops, it'll leave a little like imperfection when you pull away. And then I would just start adding light and shadow where the to make it really look like a 3D object. So if the light source was like coming from over here, then my shines would be also hitting that direction. So shines would be over here and then the shadow would be over there. So if you want your icing to look like really slick and slippery and shiny, and all the fun icing textures, then that's kind of my tip. And you just sort of like play with where you stick it. It's not like an exact science, the placement of icing shines. But I like to do that little like extra dot too to kind of show the light reflecting in various places. And then this is black, but I'll use like a red to show you where my shadow would be.
I have a question on how you're using the color right now. Because you're switching the color. I've seen people do this a different way, but some people block all of it out in like grayscale. Um,
Sure.
I mean, I know the answer to this because I've seen how you work, but I think it's really helpful. So do you go into this with a color palette or do you come in with color later and test things out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, it depends on the piece. Sometimes I have a color palette in mind ahead of time and I'll like preload it into my palette and start using it from the get-go and decide if it works or not later. Other times I might work in grayscale. So it's totally up to you. But when I'm choosing the colors for the light and the shadow, I always choose kind of different values around the same color that I used for the icing. So I'll just use a really lighter value for the highlight and a darker value for the shadow. And I might like add a little more saturation to the shadow or something like that to make it a little bit richer. But yeah, and so I'm kind of plotting out where the shadows would go. And I typically do the icing is also on top of the cake. So it's gonna cast like a couple shadows. There's gonna be a shadow that's on the interior of the icing, like the one that I just drew on top of the icing itself. So that's like kind of giving shape and dimension to the icing that's coming out of the piping bag. And then there's going to be a drop shadow that's being cast onto the surface, the flat surface of the cake. So that's going to be a layer underneath. And I'll just show kind of with a blue where that would live. Oops. So if the light is coming from this direction, the drop shadow is also going to be in this direction. So usually I'll just like duplicate the top lettering layer and transform it manually. So I won't like draw this out the way that I'm drawing it now. But this is kind of giving you an idea of what it looks like when it's transformed. And then I'll just like really soften it, lower the opacity, and then add a little bit of blur. And that's all there is to it.
So you're usually working in raster for this or in pixels for this. And then are
Yeah.
you working on new layers for every single like color
Yes,
or
I would. Normally that's what I would be doing. I'm just showing it quickly so that y'all can see, but yeah, every time I can make a new layer, I do because that gives me more and more control over changes that I might want to make later
okay.
because yeah, I think
I
that
always
about covers
bring
it.
I always bring my before I deliver a file to a client, I always bring it into Photoshop and I like clean up everything and then I also like name the layers and group them. Like I would never send a Fresco file. Like I wouldn't, that's not how you would send a file, obviously. But you can just bring it right into Photoshop and like clean it up so it's like deliverable. But I know a lot
Hmm.
of people ask us if like the files you make on your iPad are your final files, but that's like not a file that they would be able to open, the manufacturer. So you would obviously export it as like a PSD and then I just bring it into Photoshop to be safe and like just clean up anything that might look messy or whatever. Yeah, I think it's the same for you as well.
Yeah, and I think let's move on to do just like one more type of sketch. Sorry about my dog in the background. Um, And yeah, so this is I basically continue the same way. This obviously isn't to my final standards of how I would want the lettering to
Yeah.
look, but this is you get the general gist of it.
What if you were
So
adding illustration to it though? Like as far as
what
sketching,
about?
would you would you do just like we just did the lettering here? Would you do the illustration with the sketch and then go in with
Yeah,
the lettering?
Yeah, for sure. I do them both at the same time because I find that a lot of people when they call themselves an illustrator, but not a letterer, or a letterer but not an illustrator, they tend to like come at those pieces separately. They're like, I'm gonna really pay a lot of attention to the lettering, and then, oh, once the lettering's done and perfect, I'm gonna throw some flowers on there or something, and it just feels like a different piece. So
Yeah,
when you integrate them as you're sketching, it helps for everything to feel harmonic
yeah,
and like it belongs in the same world. And maybe let's do I had this other phrase, have the best bloomin' birthday, or something about a bloomin' birthday, where it's like a
onion.
play on puns. No, a bloomin' onion, that'd be hilarious. But then we can just add some flowers to it, which would be a simple little illustration to look at.
Yeah,
Um, so I have this my size saved. This is the same size that we talked about earlier. Um, so yeah, let's see. The phrase is have the best bloomin' birthday. Do you like that?
yeah, I love it. And I'm just going to answer this question in the chat. Does Fresco support vector shapes? Yes, it does. So Katie
Mm-hmm.
chose when she made the file that she was going to do a pixel, but you can choose
Well,
vector.
you can actually change when you're in the file, like what layer is vector versus what layer is pixel. So you're not like stuck to all pixels and all vectors.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you just pick like a vector brush and you start drawing with that, and it shows you here that it's a vector brush versus if I choose the pixel brush, it has a different little icon. I can't zoom in on it, but it's on the right hand side.
Yeah,
See how those two have different icons?
yeah, that's awesome.
So good to know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just go ahead and clear this layer and then click to delete this layer.
While Katie's sketching, I'd love for if you're in the chat, what would you like to see on the next episode? Do you want more patterns, sketching? Do you want copywriting? Let us know. Actually, if we can do a poll or fill in the blank, let us know just in the chat what you'd like to see for next week.
Something that I like to do when I'm doing these kind of lettering pieces that's like mostly lettering but has like little flowers woven in, which is kind of a hallmark thing that I do. Um, I will kind of stack them so I have lots of places for the flowers to like weave in and out of, and I kind of create the lettering to be like a lattice or a structure that the flowers are like moving through. So that's sort of how I think about these. So have the, and then maybe best takes up like the whole space. So I'm gonna make that a little bigger, and I'm not really worrying about like the lettering style at this point, like we talked about before.
I just focusing
Um,
on composition and lockup, really.
yeah, and it could be nice to have this this whole, should I say blooming? I'll just say blooming for now. We can always change it to blooming. I just thought it might be weird to have like a this hanging off the side. I don't know. What do you think?
I was going with Bloomin', but I this is also the fun thing about being a lettering artist. I feel like you actually could get away with not including the apostrophe, but
Yeah,
Katie
I would just have to hang it
agree.
like that to where it's like fully
Yeah.
off the side and
Or
not trying to be in line with the last
what
letter.
if it's script, but the rest isn't? And so it like has room to go off the edges.
Yeah, we could do that. So I'm just gonna say bye to that guy. Don't show me that again. I get it. Okay, and then now I'm going to deselect and use my pencil brush. I'm going to use my pencil brush, I said.
I can't believe you're not working with like a grid or a guide or anything underneath.
I don't at first, but I'll add one later on.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
guess
have a guide always turned on?
oh, like almost always. But I worked a lot more like with symmetry than Katie. Like her stuff is so much more organic and like she's like the flourish queen. So like I really need someone to tell me what boundaries to stay in. It's my comfort zone for sure, but I'm like fine with breaking the grid. I just like it keeps me on track. Like it keeps me from going off the rails, but I guess going off the rails is pretty fun too.
Okay. Um, so this is starting to show me like what this full lockup is gonna look like in a very loose, sketchy way. I'm gonna grab the transform and kind of pull this.
You're allowed to stretch it because
Yeah, when
whatever
you're working on it, you can do whatever the heck you want.
And in the chat, if you voted for other, can you let us know what other means to you, what you'd like to see, so we can build that into our upcoming videos? We've only got about 5 minutes left for today.
Yeah, so I'll just roughly show, I mean, obviously the next thing I would do would be to define like the lettering style. So maybe I want to do like a slab serif or something like that, like a westerny style. So I would sort of define um, those shapes. Okay.
The card is done. It looks great. It's ready to go to a client.
Yeah, perfect. Good to go. I love when you gently make fun of me as I'm sketching. It makes me feel really
No,
confident.
it's so, you're such a natural. You know, I love everything that you make.
Okay, so then what I would do when I'm adding in the floral illustrations is, and usually the flowers, I like them to be like a pop of color to lead your eye throughout. So what you want to do is at the end be able to look at it and no area feels like, oh, there's more color over here than there is over there. I want it to feel like it's leading my eye through the piece. So, I might like, let's say there's a flower over here. I'll like generally plot out where the flowers are going to be and if I'm going to have like several different types of flowers or I'm going to stick with like one kind. Um, I usually do this part after I have like all the lettering styles defined at least, just so I kind of can see more of the weight throughout the piece. Okay. Doo -doo. And if I'm working with like vines um, or leaves or things like that, then I'll start to like figure out, okay, maybe that kind of weaves through here. And then maybe this leaf kind of fills in. So I'm looking at like the negative space of where I can start to fill in using the vines. And another one of our ultimate favorite tools is little dots or little elements that can kind of go in and fill up any of the awkward, like negative space areas that we weren't able to fill in with like the leaves or anything like
You
that.
made
So you
this
can
look
start to
so
see.
easy. Like the floral placement, I feel like I really struggle with this part and I end up like going to like the obvious places, but like I would have gone to the bottom of the T because it's like more empty, but I love how you went to the top of the T and made it like trail down because it's just
Mhm.
so like elegant. And yeah, I definitely struggle with that. And you made it look very easy. I can see this card. I want to see this card finished in a couple weeks.
And
So
then you can also like instead of just like randomly trailing them around, you could also try and make a flow of your vines. So like if I want to all kind of flow out of this one flower, I might do something like that and kind of build out of this one area.
Bree
See
says
what
she carries pens and a sketch pad everywhere, and I'm jealous. I should do that.
I love it.
You know,
Well, you've seen my very bare bones sketching process, and it's kind of like showing your feet pics to people or something.
or your underwear
Um,
drawer or something.
yeah, your underwear drawer. Uh, but yeah, it's hard. You only have a short time to kind of develop things, but I swear my stuff eventually looks like this.
Well, we only had like 30 minutes to show, but
Right.
it looks like people are interested in learning more about copywriting, and maybe we can do that, as well as patterns and sketching and other, but no idea what other means. So if you can let us know, that'd be great. But
Yeah, would love to know.
your process is wonderful, and I know that this card is going to be so beautiful when it's finished. And it's nice to see the messy beginning because I
Yeah.
think we all put so much pressure on ourselves to like make it this like perfect sketch. But like the
Yeah.
reality is that you got to get those ideas out on paper
That's the
and
most important part.
give yourself like a guide. So we'll be back next week. Anything else we should wrap up with?
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm excited that we've had y'all come along for the journey, and it's good to get to know you as we keep going through the weeks. So I
Yeah.
hope we'll see you again next time.
Yeah, and we'll join the Discord. There's a link in the chat if you want to join, and we can chat more about any of your licensing questions or some of the topics we can cover in the next one.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, bye everybody.